Hey, good morning, Hayden. This is a demo video for you for your SP Sabers Shroud of the Dark Side. This is a little bit of a complicated setup, so I hope that you find this video helpful. And if you have any questions, either by the time I'm done or after you get it, please reach out and let me know. It does need to be dealt with in a very particular kind of way. All right. It's a very nice hilt, very accurate. It looks very nice in the hand. Although when it comes to an install, it's just a bit of a unique setup. All right. So what I did was I installed this with a Proffie. I've got your two Emperor fonts on there. You've got a stock V3 NPXL in here for your Neopixel connector. This is a 2-button setup, right? So you got your two switches here. One thing about these switches though is they're not on a spring system or anything like that. They're just kind of gravity fed, and they're held in there with the chassis. So when the chassis is not in there, they will pop right out from the inside if you're not careful. How to get to your chassis is you just want to unscrew this piece right here. All right, you can take that off. That's how you can see your chassis there. I have it set up in a way that you can take this out and not take out the speaker, but I will take out the speaker this time to show you everything because it is a bit of a unique setup back here too. All right, but first of all, come over here. You can take this and you can just kind of go like this, and your chassis will fall right down into your hand. All right, so we'll go over this in a minute. With your switches, if you're not careful, they will fall out. So if we didn't have them facing the bottom and we had them facing the top like that, they come right out. They're not on a spring or anything. They are just pieces that slide in from the inside, and they just look like that. All right, so they got magnets on them. I did have to do some filing on both of them so that they floated freely. All right. One thing that you don't have to mess with very often is the speaker. It will stay in place and it will make contact with the chassis. But if you ever do need to take it out, what you want to do is come over here and take this screw out right here. All right, so we'll come over here and we'll take this out real quick. And I'll show you what I mean. As you're unscrewing that, kind of hold the pommel with your pinky or something so it doesn't just fall off. Since it's at a bit of a tilt, it will fall off if you're not careful. All right, but once we take that piece off right there, we can come over here and pull our pommel off. Just like that. You'll see your speaker here and it will fall out into your hand. It is obviously a speaker pod. It's got a 28mm premium speaker. This is not a base speaker. This is a premium. Only way I could fit a 28 in here cleanly. All right, so you'll notice though, on the back side of this speaker pod, the PCB for your stock connector is not centered. That means it needs to be put in a certain way. I did kind of put this notch in here in the speaker pod to try to assist you in that so you'd have a visual. All right, so that notch right there that's cut out needs to be lined up with that screw that we took out. So if you look inside of here, you can see, I know it's kind of hard getting my camera to focus. You can kind of see that notch right there. That's where that needs to line up. I did come in here with a Dremel and clean some of this up. There was a little bit of a lip there that prevented the chassis from sliding in and out freely. This hilt's pretty shiny, so getting my camera to focus on it is pretty difficult. But yeah, I went in there, I cleaned up that lip so the chassis could float in and out freely. All right, so we'll take this speaker, line it up. If it's not lined up correctly, it's not going to make contact with the chassis. Put it in just like that. Come over here and put our pommel back on. Hold all that down, and then we can screw that screw back in. Now I know that's a little bit unique, but like I said, I tried to make the chassis in a manner that you could pop it out without taking the pommel off. You may need to from time to time because everything's such a tight fit. All right, but that's how you do it. So once we got that locked in, we got the pommel locked in, the speaker pod's not going anywhere. Very hard to see it from in here. It's just too deep, but it's in there and it's not going anywhere. All right. Secondly, what we want to do on these switches, you got to put them in with your finger or with like a pair of tweezers or something. And I'll show you a trick that I try to do to where they don't fall out. Pop them in here with my finger. Usually when I take the chassis out or anything, I try to have these switches facing the bottom so that gravity holds them in, and then I'll set this off to the side where the switch is facing the bottom. All right, so that way, hopefully they stay in place for you. And then finally, this is your chassis. This original design was from Ollie over at White Cloud Sabers. The first time I did this, he was nice enough to let me use his. There were a little bit of differences between the Saber I had in production and the chassis that he had. So I did model my own, which is this one, but it was based largely off of what he did. So he did all the work. I try to give him a good shout out, whenever I do this Saber. But this is your chassis. You got your Proffie board right there. You've got easy access to your SD card and your micro USB. Good Lord. The focus game on this camera is not strong this morning. But yeah, easy access to your SD card and your micro USB. You got your stock connector down here that makes contact with that PCB for your speaker pod. As you can see, that's not centered either. That's why we needed to line up that speaker pod in a particular kind of way. I've got a 5-pixel Neopixel accent strip right here where these holes are in the chassis, and it gives you just a little bit of animation, when the chassis is out of the Saber, for no other reason other than just to say that we could. All right, so this takes an 18350 battery. The battery needs to be put in a certain way. I'll show you how to do that. And of course, you've got, your 2 switches here. You got 1.5 millimeter brass hat tactiles, and then you've got your stock V3 right here. All right. When using 18350, this is the one I'm going to send you. I already took the Keep Power sticker off of it. If you get a new one, I would do the same thing. When you look at the battery, and again, it might be hard to see in person, but underneath the wrap, at a certain point, you can kind of see it right there. There's a metal strip that goes from one side of the battery all the way to the other. That needs to be outside of the chassis, but along the side. All right. It's a very tight fit. I didn't want to show any wires here, and this was the trade-off. All right, so when you put the battery in, you can't put it in one way or the other first. You have to put it straight in. So we'll get this and we'll put it straight in. And you can see I got those LEDs going like this for you. That metal strip is right outside of the chassis, but it's riding right along the top edge, if that makes sense, okay? That makes sure that this fits correctly. So yeah, these will time out on you if you don't turn on the Saber right away, but if we do, we'll hit the power button. They get a little bit faster. Your LEDs are firing up. And then you got twist off. All right, so we've got the battery in the Saber. Take our Saber with the switches facing down. Throw it in. Gently, with your finger, push it all the way to the back. All right. You can give yourself a little bit of a sanity check. You can hit auxiliary.
Darth Sidious.
Everything's good to go there. All right, so now we can go ahead and screw this back on. And everything's good. That is a lot to take in to make this functional. So I hope all that makes sense. I did not really see a way around doing this. So it is a sacrifice that was made to have this replica Saber that's very accurate. It just has a very unique setup. All right, so once again, the green switch over here is your auxiliary.
Chancellor Palpatine.
Red is power. All right, we'll go ahead and throw a blade in. This takes a 7/8" blade. I'm not going to use a blade retention because the blade fits in here pretty snug, but you do have one blade retention screw right here at the very tip of the emitter. All right. Once everything is in, this Saber is very solid. Sound very good. Blade lockup is holding down the auxiliary and hitting the saber. Well, blaster bolt deflex is just tapping the auxiliary. And then you have twist off. Both of your sound fonts have soundtrack, so it's a long press on the power to get those to play when the saber's off. Another long press to turn it off. And then to switch sound fonts, you just tap auxiliary.
Darth Sidious.
And the soundtrack for this one. Right? And then another long press to turn it off. Just like that. All right, so we'll go ahead and take the blade out of this guy and go over taking the chassis back out. So again, come over here and unscrew this guy. Over time, when you use this saber over and over again, the chassis will kind of get worn a little bit, and it will be a lot easier to come over here and just kind of pop it out with your hand. But when you first get it, you know, since it has a battery in it, it might be a little too tight to do that. So we'll have to go back through and we'll take the pommel off. All right, so we'll do that right now. It's a fresh install. So take that pommel off, pop our speaker out like that. So now we can see the back of our chassis, right? We'll go ahead and again make sure that those switches are facing down so that we can come through the back with our thumb and push our chassis out just a hair, right? You can see it from here and then it'll fall right into your hand. So we'll put this off to the side. It is a little bit tough to get this out with your fingers. It's possible, but if you have like a pair of tweezers or a tool or something, like here I'm using an Allen key, and you know, it's a little bit easier to do it like that. Actually, with tweezers, it's way easy. Or a Lego tool. I don't have any Legos or a Lego removal tool. I just have the back of my tweezers, but with that, it pops right out. All right, and that is basically your Shroud of the Dark Side. So I know that was a lot. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be happy to walk you through that again. All right, thanks, man.